Yo, YouTube. We got Nucha. Nucha. I keep throwing it in there. We got Nucha. We got How Did Kira Actually Lose? We added to one of Nucha's videos the other day for you guys. I think that was most likely going to be like 2 days ago. If I post an order, this will come 2 days after. 1 to 2 days after. So let's just say the other day. And today we have How Did Kira Actually Lose? We actually did a video of his about Joe. I was gonna say JoJo, but like they're all JoJo. Joseph, and today's gonna be breaking down what happened with Kira. How did he actually lose? So I was gonna pre-follow a like. And without further ado, as always, the main man's last. Out until timeline, providing with some content. Without further ado, let's slide right in.
Kira Yoshikage calls himself a peaceful man, someone who simply wants a happy, quiet life. Yet beneath that lies a war he is constantly fighting within himself, an obsession with severed hands, a hunger for control, and an ego that refuses to disappear. He wants to blend into the background, yet cannot stop reaching for superiority, shown early by never allowing himself to fall behind third place. So today, I'll break down Kira's contradictions, the mistakes that expose him, and whether a man like Kira could have ever won in the first place. But before that, if you enjoy this type of content, the goal is 20k, so if you enjoy, sub up. Now, before we break down exactly where Kira slipped up and whether his loss was justified, it's important to first understand him as a character. Our earliest real insight into Kira's past comes when the team visits his old home in Morio, searching for any trace of his true identity. It's there that they discover a strange pattern. In every competition, every academic event, and every measurable field of performance, Kira constantly plays third. It's not outstanding enough to attract praise, yet
takes third. Yeah, that implies that it's like the Miles Morales thing in the movie where you got like a zero on a true or false test. It's like to get a zero, you have to know all the answers. It's like it's a similar thing. It's very impressive because you have top three skill in almost every category, or you can also perceive it as like I don't want to stand out too much. I want to be in the background, but I want you to know that I'm like that.
Far too skilled to be overlooked as well. He even placed third nationally in a violin competition. A man who truly desired a quiet, unnoticed life would aim for an average score at best. Third place suggests a need to be acknowledged, just slightly, without ever becoming the center of attention.
Yeah, see? It's like that need for like the feeling of winning. You need a trophy. You need to be the best. Because you know you're superior to people, but you don't want them to know you're superior because that puts too much attention.
Enough to earn himself a medal for his achievements, but not to stand out at the top of it. Jotaro points out that even in photographs, Kira positions himself in a way that avoids both admiration and contempt. Someone who never flaunts his strengths, but also never exposes his weaknesses. Yet this idea becomes contradictory when you remember that placing third place at a national level is far from average. Jotaro even confirms that this was by Kira's own design, a method of hiding his high intelligence. Yet this design slightly clashes with his other choices. He has no criminal record, no close relationship, is single, has no surgeries, and no medical trail. Kira went to the great lengths to erase himself from the world, right down to ensuring there were no fingerprints or dental records.
And that's also kind of contradictory because if you're supposed to be this average guy, you should build a trail of these things that prove that you're average, but instead there's a cold trail which proves this, it hints at this like hidden motive behind those eyes.
To trace, meaning even if he somehow left a fingerprint on the crime scene, they wouldn't have been able to trace it back to him in a traditional way. So why would someone who is dedicated to staying invisible choose a pattern that still places him in third place every time? Or even take the wrong steps when dealing with the Morio team as well? This contradiction is one of the first cracks in understanding who Kira Yoshikage really was. In the same scene, they also discover his habit of keeping a record of the length of his nails ever since the killing of Sugimoto Reimi 15 years ago. Kira uses it to measure his luck or condition of killings, showing yet another side of him that leads to his inevitable downfall. With that established, we can now move on to the actual mistakes Kira made, keeping in mind the type of man he is, and later explore whether there was any realistic path of him to still achieve victory. This isn't about ignoring the choices he made, but about understanding what choices were in character and actually valid. Just as people argue that Light would have won if he hadn't taken the Lin L Taylor bait, even though that decision perfectly.
True, it's like he's getting rid of the what do we call it in the video we watched? The viewer paradox or viewer effect. Like getting rid of that bias where you're viewing it just from you. So it's like obviously narratively you have to write the main villain to be this imposing figure. But beyond that aura that they have to give you for you to be interested enough in the main villain and there to be enough tension, the main villain is still a person. In some way, shape, or form of the word, which means they have choices, they have a path, and a past, and something that led them down the path that they're currently on. So when you take out of that viewer bias, like, oh, they should have won that, you know, they're just tough. you have to think, well, the adrenaline was here. They made choices like this in the past. So this is actually a regression of their character, or this is them falling into old habits, or this completely concludes their character because they're a character constantly striving for growth, but in the end, they realize they return to their old habits. Things like that.
Fits his character, or people who try to rewrite L into something unrecognizable with overly complex counterplans are light. We'll apply that same logic to Kira, and from there, we can ask whether he ever had a realistic path to recover from the mistakes he made. The first and most obvious turning point in Kira's downfall is Shigechi. The discovery of the severed hand in the paper bag is his initial slip-up, setting off a chain of reaction of errors, leaving a button at a crime scene, failing to eliminate Koichi during the sheer heart attack encounter, and ultimately being restrained by Act 3, all of which prevent Kira into activating Bites the Dust. But was running into Shigechi or even Josuke later on really just a coincidence? At first, I would have said yes, but within the world of JoJo, these kinds of encounters happen far too often to be dismissed as random. As the series makes it clear, Stan users are drawn to the other Stan users. In the same way Koichi almost immediately crosses paths with Jono at the beginning of part 5. It may have simply been fate for Kira to eventually collide with other Stan users. Kira was also about to run Koichi over in his car in an earlier scene, going right past Josuke in the process. So it was somewhat hinted that their meeting was inevitable. So that initial encounter is valid and not as plot armor coated as people believe it to be. Some of you may even think it is weird he had the severed hand out in public, but that action itself fits his character. Kira hates it when women are selfish. He hates it when they have opinions or try to dictate his time. He says he wants a date, but what he really wants is to be in absolute control. He of course has a twisted sexuality of loving hands, so that adds onto his pride and causes him to act out in places that an otherwise quiet man wouldn't. It represents the only form of intimacy that feels safe enough for his fragile need for control, the safety of an object that will never challenge him, which is why
because their hands are always in the palm of his hands. That's low-key a bar, bro. I just noticed looking at it, like, it's a severed hand, which shows that there's, like, no brain, right? There's a reason it's not a leg, because legs are, like, movement. You use them only to point A, point B. Hands are only used for choices involving, like, you know, maybe where you, like, potentially where you want to go, like going out of a door, you have to turn the door handle. But normally things that you want to associate with. All the things related to your personality. Why would I don't know, type a message to someone? You know? Things of that nature. A hand is like a part of like kind of transmission of like what you want to do. It's like a form of expression almost. We use that as a medium to express. Legs are used just point A, point B. Hands pick up things. They grab things. They draw. They write. They cook. They are things that we use as mediums to express ourselves. So it is the perfect piece of saying you still have someone while them not having control, because the head, the body, none of that is there. It's just this. The thing that you use to express, the medium you use to express yourself. And now I have full control over that. What he's explaining is making a lot more sense to me. I'm not gonna lie.
As mundane as sitting with his partner to eat a sandwich, somewhat hidden away, is completely in character for Kira. And it is only fate or JoJo logic as to why he ever got discovered. As for the hand Shigechi took, the fact that it happened to be wearing a ring Kira had bought for it is also within character. However, it's still fair to say that in this particular moment, JoJo's sense of fate does lean slightly into plot armor territory. Even so, I don't believe it changes the bigger picture. Given the way Stan users are drawn to one another, it was likely inevitable that Kira and the Morio group would have crossed paths eventually. And of course, we have to remember the existence of Sugimoto Neimi's ghost that led them to Kira's existence. Kira's next major slip-up comes during the sheer heart attack encounter. His decision to eliminate anyone getting close to his identity, including the store owner, is completely in character. But one moment in this sequence feels noticeably out of step with the extreme caution Kira had shown up to that point, especially after going as far as to hiding right next to Josuke and Okuyasu just to retrieve his severed hand from Shigechi. This time,
that's next levels of composure.
Instead of staying close and maintaining control of the situation, Kira creates distance between himself, Jotaro, and Koichi while sheer heart attack is still in play. Jotaro is already cornered, desperately trying to figure out how to stop the auto-tracking bomb, and Koichi is nowhere near a guaranteed threat. Even if Koichi had attacked with Act 2, Kira would still have had the upper hand in a direct confrontation. Under the right circumstances, he could have finished Jotaro as well, or at very least, escape without his identity ever being discovered.
discovered.
In other words, for the first time, Kira heavily underestimates the situation around him, even though he preemptively hid in the store to wait for their encounter. So that moment of distance, both physically and psychologically, is what begins to cost him his perfect anonymity. So it's not ridiculous to say that this may be one of the biggest mistakes he's made in the entire series. Before moving on to the Bicep Dust situation, it's worth addressing whether Kira fixing...
You know a song I might use for the breakdowns? That's reminded me, I think I might start busting out the Monogatari, John. That song, that little theme, I think that'd be tough.
Koji's sock was actually out of character. At first glance, it might seem that way, especially given that Kira normally responds to being cornered by biting his nails under the bleed, a symptom caused by his extreme stress and anxiety. But Kira also possesses an obsessive need for order and symmetry.
Oh, he fixed his sock. It was inside out. I was wondering why, like, you could see like the little lining and whatnot.
Even the smallest disruption, like sock being worn inside out, is enough to unsettle him, particularly while he's already under extreme stress in this case. That tiny act of fixing Koji's sock was a self-soothing ritual, a way for Kira to reassert control over a world that was, in that moment, slipping beyond it. In his mind, things needed to be correct before he could move forward, even if the next step was murder. And that is exactly why the scene, as strange as it appears, is actually perfectly in.
It's within character, because he, in his mind, he has to like commit the perfect plan. He's one of those people that's like, you had to wait for the perfect time, kind of. And there's never a perfect time. And that's like a fatal flaw, but that's well within his character. Because it's like, you feel me? His mindset is like, because think about it. If you were planning on smoking somebody, what they're wearing, how they're dressed, none of that matters to you. Because in a minute, you're not going to be able to make no choices for yourself. You're going to be 6 feet deep. But in his mind, I can't progress to that final step. Even though this is already on death's door, mind you. I can't progress to that final step until I fix this. Then it's going to be like the perfect crime. And that's what threw him. That's what sold his best.
Character.
But it's his
Finally,
character.
we have to address the biggest flaw in the entire case. Hayato. After taking on the identity of Kawajiri Kosaku, Kira's greatest threat somehow becomes an elementary school kid living under the same roof. Even with Kira's father creating new stand users and doing everything in his power to protect him, he still ends up in a house where a hidden camera is pointed directly at him. If I'm being completely honest, this is the one moment where JoJo's sense of fate does begin to feel like outright plot armor. But instead of reducing it to the obvious of, oh, if Hayato hadn't been there, Kira would have won, I want to focus on something more important. How Kira responded to this new threat, the way he handled Hayato, the way he tried to control, manipulate, and eventually eliminate him, and whether or not those choices were truly in character for a man who claimed to desire nothing more than a quiet, normal life. The first key moment comes when Kira becomes aware of Hayato, and before anyone says that it was out of character for Kira to practice his handwriting, I actually think the opposite is true. For someone like Kira, who is obsessively committed to maintaining control and blending perfectly into his new identity, altering even his handwriting would be completely in character. He even went to the lengths of calling work while he was mid-fight with Josuke. It reflects a part of him that is meticulous and willing to refine every small detail to perceive the illusion of normality, right down to the way he writes his own name. So, returning to Hayato, the first real proof he receives that Kira is someone entirely different, merely wearing his father's face, comes when Kira casually admits that had Hayato discovered the existence of Stray Cat, he would have been forced to kill him. Later, Hayato catches Kira in the act, recording him as he murders a couple on his way home from work. Aside from Kira not realizing Hayato had boarded the same train, this detail is still fairly believable within this setup. What truly shifts in this moment is Kira's pride. That pride fully surfaces during the bath scene. After Hayato threatens him with the videotape, telling him, "Don't lay a hand on me or mom," the power dynamic flips in a way that Kira cannot tolerate. The instant he said that, Hayato is no longer a child, but someone who's standing above him, dictating his terms. And Kira cannot exist in a world where he's beneath anyone. His desire for control overrides his own plan for a quiet life. Even though eliminating Hayato risks exposing everything, Kira still goes through with it out of wounded pride. It is through Bicep Dust that Kira temporarily regains his sense of power, and with it, his pride returns stronger, blinding him with overconfidence. The events that follow, beginning with Rohan's death, unfold, blinding him with...
Well, that's Killer Queen doing the little Omni-Man pose, bro. Thought I wasn't gonna notice those.
overconfidence. The events that follow, beginning with Rohan's death, unfold almost flawlessly for him. One by one, the Morio team is erased, as if fate is back on his side, a topic I will explore further another time. Even his wristwatch ends up saving him from what would have been a fatal attack from Stray Cat. And yet, once again, it's Kira's own pride that gets to him. His growing confidence blinds him into saying his name out loud, directly contradicting the very system that was protecting him. And in that moment, the pressure becomes too much. Deactivating Dust in that moment of panic becomes his greatest mistake. The final crack in what had once seemed like a guaranteed victory. And it also all ties back to his first mistake of not ending Koichi as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it also goes back to taking out the viewer paradox and your bias. This is why villains like rant before they win. They've been planning out this for however long. And there's only been like one or two things in their way. And like imagine the most nuisance of things to your plan been in your way for this long, and then like you find a way to finally get rid of that thing. The amount of adrenaline rushing through you, you know, why not just, you're gonna be dead anyway. I hate when they say that. I don't like when they say it out loud, like, oh, you're gonna be dead in a minute anyway, so I'll just tell you. I don't like that. But when they just blurt it out naturally, it's like, okay, that's like understandable. They lost their composure. They've been waiting for this moment for so long. You're too in the moment.
As he prevented him from activating Bicep Dust. So, after going through all of this, should Kira have won? Well, I don't believe he should have. Every decision he makes in those final moments is perfectly in character for a man defined by contradiction. Someone who craves peace.
They're not the best decisions for his plan, but they're the decisions that Yoshikage Kira would make. So, at that point, you can't make it a thing of like plot armor. Oh, he just lost the plot. It's more of like, he lost because of who he was, you know? He's someone capable of winning because of who he was, but the determining factor of why he lost is him being who he is.
Yet is ruled by control and ego. And that inner conflict is precisely what makes Kira Yoshikage one of the most compelling villains in all of...
Facts. Facts. Hey man, appreciate y'all for watching. Another comp video from my dog, Nucha. This is how did Kira actually lose. I've been liking this content. I've been liking diving into like JoJo's more like kind of seriously through his content, through these kind of deep dives, and they've inspired me to do certain different things with the breakdowns. So you want to see more of those, stay tuned. And as always, make sure you stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. No time to catch me next. Peace.